Since the moment I first saw this game, I knew it was going to be special, but after playing the demo multiple times for hours longer than was reasonable, I was literally counting down the days till it released in full. I pre-ordered on Steam Deck, but when I found out it was going to be available a full 16 hours earlier on console, I pre-ordered it on my Switch as well. I'm prepared to pull an all-nighter. This was my most anticipated game of the year. It was going to be worth it. So, was it? Today we're playing Chapter 1. It's about 8 hours of gameplay, literally all night. But I would guess that varies player to player because it doesn't really feel linear. It doesn't feel like there's only one way to play the story out. So maybe your playthrough will look a little different to mine. If you enjoy cozy and casual gameplay, why not join our Discord? Obviously subscribe to this channel, but our Discord is teeny tiny and you won't be spammed or bothered at all with constant updates because we barely remember to chat. I don't know if I'm selling it to you, but it will be linked in the description. Week 1. My first step, as it usually is creating the character. The look here is pretty unique. I don't think I've played another game that looks like this. Kind of reminds me of like toys from when I was a kid, but limited in terms of choices. I'm not hugely into this part of any kind of game, so that doesn't really matter to me, but maybe it would matter to you. I don't know. A couple of extra hair options wouldn't have gone amiss, but this was fine. It's also worth noting that your appearance can be changed at any time from the mirror in your, spoiler alert, but trailer. So the stakes are very low because you can change this almost immediately. Next thing I knew, I was on a bus to Blomkest. I'm going to just go with whatever it is I think the pronunciation of these names are, so just, I apologise in advance. We're off there to help my aunt open a new supermarket, which it seems like she already had a supermarket, but then she's just bought this discounty franchise. So she needs help with the transition from little local shop to like destination shopping centre, which kind of sounds like that's what she's expecting it to be. Thankfully, I wasn't alone because Aunt Tella had like a sassy and secretive vibe, but Grace showed me the ropes and got me settled in. It was a baptism of fire, ordering stock, manning the cash register solo while Grace hung out in the back room all day. I'm not really sure what she was doing, but I learned best by doing, so I appreciated the deep end approach. At the end of my shift, Aunt Tella was waiting to show me, not to her lovely spare room in her cottage, but a rundown old trailer with a noisy shed neighbour I was told not to worry about. Will this be an ongoing mystery? Time will tell. The next morning I was woken abruptly by Tella asking me to put out some flyers advertising the grand opening that was happening later that same morning. It seemed a little bit late to me, but I went with it, and the first official day went off without a hitch. As I was leaving for the day, I noticed a strange van parked outside, and nearby there's an entrance to a local forest that had all been like cordoned off. The local photojournalist Cornelius Key, who definitely is like, he's like, all of his ancestors lived here. It comes up. But he told me that there had been some rumours of mysterious fog caused by a manufacturing plant nearby. He wasn't convinced, but that was the rumour, and he was determined to investigate for himself. So I kind of figured, like, he seems more qualified than I am, so I just left him to it and continued on with my life. I met Miss Anderson on my walk, who told me about her cat, who I happen to have already seen and is definitely a raccoon. I stopped by the local antique shop and met Solruna. Again, forgive me. She sells decor, which I'm unlikely to partake in, but she seems quirky and someone worth knowing. I also met Hilda the barkeep, who shared some gossip about the new-to-town business owner Barbara. Elmer Pulstock, he is going to be a character. He's the country. No, every time I read this on the live, I said country. I can't read county as country anymore. He is the county representative. He works at the printers, which I feel like is actually not a printers at all. It's like a town hall, but there is a printing service there. So I'm going to say he works at the printers. He works where the printer is. But he's a little bit too establishment for my liking. He's not my vibe. After a little snippet about Barbara, I thought I'd take a trip down to the docks and meet her and Fisher, the fisherman, just see for myself what these people are really like. He told me that Barbara has a monopoly on the fish in Blomkest, so he can't sell to me. The plot thickens with Barbara. Before turning in for the night on my first day in town, Aunt Tella asked me if I'd met Elmer. Again, Elmer, such a drama here. There's definitely some animosity. I don't know what went down, but she seems to definitely have a grudge against him, and I've experienced some things so far that makes me feel like something happened, but I don't know what it was. I woke up to a newspaper on my doorstep. We were front page news. Nothing to sniff at. I feel like that was a good grand opening day, Teller took me over to the hardware store to show me where to buy extra shop fittings, which was very handy. I also bought a fish tank, feeling very pleased with myself, that I later felt less pleased with myself. It's one of those things, trying to get ahead of myself, and it never works out. But I did buy the shelving and the coolers, and they were good buys. Another day of work in the shop down. I was getting really fast at the till. Grace remained in the back room. I started to wonder if maybe Grace might in fact live in the back room, but we weren't asking any questions. Teller had another favour to ask me after work. She wanted me to strike up a trade deal, not just one, but 3, with the local farmer, the fisherman, and the factory owner. I went straight to Barbara. She's the factory owner. She's the fish monopolizer. We struck a deal. We were like making friends. The deal was I was going to sell some fish sticks. I knew this was coming from the demo, and that's why I bought the fish tank, as it would boost sales for the fish products. What a genius I was. Then I spoke to Fisher. He reminded me that he'd already got an exclusive arrangement with Barbara, so I went back to Barb, cap in hand. Please let Fisher sell me the fresh fish outside of the deal, please, Barbara. She said I could on one condition. I had to sell some terrible cinnamon-flavoured, Christmas-themed fish sticks. I mean, everything about this sounds terrible, but if I did that, she'd cut me in. She'd allow me to trade with her exclusive contact, Fisher. So again, so happy I bought that tank, right? The booster, the fish tank, I was going to be selling so many fish, more fish than I could buy from my suppliers. So I headed to Ted's hardware store for more coolers, where he gave me an aquarium for free. Note to self that I will never listen to. Stop trying to be clever and do things in advance. Do things in the order that the game tells you to do them. Anyway, I reorganized the store to best use the fish selling boosters, as well as the soda booster that I bought, which I'll probably get for free tomorrow from somebody else. And I did start selling them. So we're well on the way to getting a second contract at this point. Ted told me about recycling, which is an excellent source of income. 50 shills, which FYI, love the word shills. Love that that is the name. I guess like short for shillings, but also it's like being a corporate shill. Love it. 50 shills per box, which equates to 1 full standard shelf. So it's definitely worth doing. On Thursday, Backroom Grace showed me a new feature on the computer where I could earn rewards for completing goals and add to our catalogue of goods. So it just made sense. Add a bit of variety, maybe we'll make more money. I also noticed what seemed to be a bucket and sponge had appeared from nowhere, but Grace had no information about it, so we both ignored it for now. After a busier than normal day in the shop, I met Carl to the east of town. He told me that a fallen tree was blocking his route back to his farm. He literally couldn't get back home. Also, his sheep were all over the place, but that's coming later. He was staying with his ex-wife, Hilda, the barkeep. Ooh, all of these webs that we weave. But we really did need to get him back and farming again because we needed to trade with a farmer. So we needed him to be farming. I asked Antella for help and she came up with a plan a little too quickly. Collect all 8 of Carl's wayward sheep that had scattered around the town since the great tree falling, and that somehow would help grease the wheels to get this block removed. Okay, cool. So once collected, the sheep were all corralled in the park. It just made sense. It was this central green area in the town. That turned out to be Elmer's pride and joy. Speaking of joy, Teller took much of it in Elmer's despair over the sheep eating his flowers. But she was right. That did light a fire under the county, not country, representatives, and they actually did get the tree removed. So it worked, but at what cost? Teller, at what cost? The next day, I was able to venture further north, and that's where I discovered a very fancy home. I initially was like, this has got to belong to the bank manager, because the bank manager told me he lives up north, but he couldn't get back and forth because of this tree situation. So I'm like, well, that's where the bank manager lives. This is relevant for later. I still don't know if that actually is where he lives. I don't know, stereotyping, I guess. There was also more of the forest that was mysteriously blocked off, and Carl was back on his farm, happy to sell me some oats, making 2 of the trade deals that I had to make for Aunt Teller complete. I don't know if that tree was keeping dirt out, but suddenly the shop floor was filthy. And spookily, we just had a bucket and sponge arrive yesterday, and so that came in handy because that's actually what that was for. This is a little bit of an irritating thing. If you walk over the dirty patches, it's slow, so you need to, I don't know if it changes the customer service thing, if the customers are less happy in a dirty store, or if it just slows them down. But having to walk all the way back to the back of the store and only having like 2 sponges worth of water, I'm hoping that something, like there's a little quality of life boost in here somewhere along the way, because it's kind of annoying, honestly. Keeping on top of that as well as stock and the till, while once again Grace hung out in the back room, was particularly tricky, and I had a bad day. It was not a good day to get my first customer approval rating. I didn't even know this was going to be a thing, but they were not happy with me. It can only get better, I suppose, but that one bad day is really going to bring our average down, like way down. But back to the positive, we sold all of the terrible Fishmas sticks, so Bob took the hold off Fisher, and that allowed him to sell us some of his fresh fish, giving us 3 trade deals and leaving me wondering out loud why Aunt Tella didn't make more of an effort to do this for herself. Why was this left to me when I arrived? These are the questions that she will never answer. Then, the next morning, Tella sent a shock wave. Useless backroom Grace, who taught me everything I know, gone. Can you believe it? Like, literally vanished. Not by choice. Business decision. Couldn't afford us both. I obviously felt suitably terrible, as you imagine. I came in, basically stole her job. But without Grace, I went on to smash it, get the equivalent of 9A stars in the customer evals. So take from that what you will. But yeah, that's a wrap on Grace and a wrap on week 1. Week 2 is kind of week 2.5 because I kept going to finish the chapter. But week 2 begins. I woke up on a Sunday to a lovely surprise. No work. Tella suggested that I explored and meet the locals. She even showed me a not at all creepy app that tracks everyone's whereabouts, which I'm not super keen on, but I suppose it's useful. I went to have some new flyers printed since they were all replaced weekly, and the more customers the better, but the printer is slow, so I left them to collect later. I decided to head north since that was a new area of town, and wouldn't you know, Grace was there. Again, like I said at the beginning, I don't think this is linear. I feel like I could have done this at different times depending on what I'd chosen to do first, so I feel like it's weird that yesterday Grace disappeared from my life and today I found her. She was filling holes in the road and she told me all about her selfish neighbours and her issues with them and how they're like trying to privatise the road and she's been complaining about it. I also found out that she's married to Ted from the hardware shop. Small world. Didn't live in the back room after all. Actually has a nice little house back in the north of town. While admiring the statue in the park, Cornelius appeared offering to write a piece about his county in the local paper. Remember this later because when he does, it's not great. But it does seem like he's offering a service, right? It felt sinister at the time. I felt like there was something going on here. Maybe I thought I'll just be overrun and struggle to keep up. I didn't feel like this was like an all the way good interaction. And in hindsight, it wasn't. I stopped by the bank for the first time and met Derek, although he was mid-fight with who at the time I thought was his wife, and now I'm not sure. I'm not entirely, like, there's a lot of tangled relationships here. So they're Grace's difficult neighbours is what I'm thinking at this point. Derek literally vanishes before my eyes, so maybe also supernatural? Watch this space. On the way home, I bumped into Miss Anderson, who requested a delivery service because apparently she needs a delivery service. Like, I feel like everyone's just putting upon me all the time. Maybe if we got Grace back, but I am seriously under the cosh right now anyway. How am I expected to do all the jobs? I don't know. Once back at the trailer, I took a peek at the noisy shed, only for Aunt Tella to emerge. She'd apparently been clearing out some of her ex-husband's things. And we had an unexpected chat. She revealed that he left her, so everyone thinks that she left him, but it was the other way around. And not only did he leave her, but she never heard from him again. So is he missing? There's definitely more to the story. Did he even leave? Was he abducted? Again, supernatural elements. Time will tell. I don't know if she just really didn't want to talk about that and what's in the shed, and if she was just using this as a tactic to distract me, but then she suggested we expand the shop. We only opened a week ago, but go off. Sure, we'll give it a go. I needed to get approval from her arch rival, Elma, which felt like that was never going to happen. We needed to buy the closed down tea shop next door, so Lord knows how that's going to go, but I can't deny we did need the room. We'd kind of maxed out the space that we had. First thing Monday, I went to collect my flyers and hopefully catch Elmer early doors. I ended up chatting with him on the way to the office. I'm nothing if not impatient, and he was surprisingly on board. I'm starting to feel like Teller might be the problem here. he said that Gina was the new owner. And I was like, well, how am I going to find out who Gina is? Now, honestly, I remembered who Gina was. I remember her. I was like, is she another delivery person? I remember on the live being very honed in on Gina. But we had this like fake conversation about, you'll know who she is because she's wearing a special delivery guy outfit. So cool. But she was also immediately amiable when I did spot her in that uniform. And she told me that Derek at the bank was helping her to sell. So it was like a done deal, of course. I'm going to Derek. He's going to tell me that, no, I need a license. I need a license. Elmer could have mentioned that, but he didn't. I missed Elmer's office hours by 10 minutes and he refused to deal with me. So I'll have to wait until tomorrow. But what are the chances there are fees involved? What are the chances there are other steps and it's not just as simple as this? On the way to see Elmer the following day, I stumbled upon an altercation between him and Tammy. This woman, is this the same woman? I need to go back and reassess this footage, but she seemed somewhat displeased that her permit had been rejected. I think this is the same woman that is Grace's bad neighbour in the big house. This is also the same woman that I believed to be Derek's wife, that he was arguing with someone that he said my spouse, but later on we find out she's married to someone else, so I don't even know. I can see how Grace might have issues with living next door to her, though. She seems quite headstrong, shall we say. When we finally got to chat to Elmer about our permit, it did all seem a bit too easy until he gave me stacks of suspicious paperwork to get rid of in return for the service. I did what anyone would do. I went immediately to the press. Cornelius and I, it feels like we were best buds, but he didn't seem to want to hear about it. So I just recycled the confidential files like the good girl that I am because I wanted a bigger shop. Tell me, why didn't I think to try and go into Teller's house until Wednesday of week 2? I do feel less mad that she had me stay in the trailer now because there's not really a lot of space. It's literally like a little studio. She's not got a lot more space than I have, but it's very cute. I happened upon Elmer in the park and decided to take my opportunity to ask him what's going on between the two of them, and he was very specific that there is not a romantic relationship there, but that she's quite mean to him, and he was quite cagey. These people like their secrets, but I am kind of almost on his side, I feel like, at this point. He then wrote me up a very casual expansion permit that didn't feel at all legal, but whatever. And then I went to the bank to discover it's not even extortionate to buy the place next door. It's only 3,000 shills, but I don't have it yet, so I'm going to work on it. By the end of the day, I had a ton of reward points, so I bought all the extra items for the shop because it takes money to make money. And a better variety will appeal to more people. So I made space for the new stock, decided to order it in the morning, and went around placing flyers to get more people in the door this week. I went and picked up some more fish from Fisher, and then I stopped by the bar for a bit of gossip with Hilda. But get this, she is also married to Tammy. I am so confused because I swear these are all the same Tammy. I thought Derek said he was married to her. I know that he did. And she seems to live next door to Grace. So I don't even understand what is going on right now. Either my understanding of the relationships in this game or the plot is thickening. Anyway, Carl, Hilda's ex, is still living with her at the bar and obviously causing some tension, it seems. The drama. And that would also explain why Tammy is always so mad. Anyway, Thursday comes and it's time to order all the new stock. And remember, I placed that order the other day, but I didn't pick it up straight away. I forgot all about it. The doors closed. Turns out it was still outside waiting for me, so I didn't lose anything. It didn't go off or anything like that. And the numbers on the plaque aren't just nonsense. There are actually a timer for how long the garage door stays open. Good to know. After a super busy and successful, though I do say so myself, day, I went back to the docks to pick up some more fish sticks from Barb and decided to call it a night. I'm only halfway through towards my financial goal, but I really feel like we're picking up steam now. In case anyone's interested, I'm averaging around 15 to 20 minutes real time per in-game day. Doesn't feel rushed at all. There seems to be no penalty for passing out, but that's rarely happening, and I'm usually finishing the day early. So I feel like it's a really nicely paced game. Friday was a busy day in the shop, and it was the first where the customer had threatened to leave, which honestly, that felt like a bit much, especially because they did still check out all the same. But there wasn't much to do after restocking and tidying, so I recycled what I could and went to bed early. Saturday is where things picked up. I finally tipped over the 3K mark, so obviously, as soon as my shift was over, I ran to the bank, hoping I'd make it before closing, and I did. The wall would be knocked through by morning. How exciting. Speaking of exciting, I bumped into a colleague formerly known as Backroom Grace in town for once, and she said she was off to the turn. She made it out like this is a thing that everyone does on a Saturday night, like everyone hangs out at the turn on a weekend. And I don't know if it was like usually there earlier in the day, but this was 6 p.m, like prime time. She told me I should go, like come and join us. Literally not one person went. I kept leaving and coming back and nothing. But I did chat with Hilda a little more. There's just only so much mind-numbing gossip to be had, so I headed back to the farm to restock the oats before calling it a night again. Sunday, this should have been a big day, but it was bittersweet. The new expansion was a game changer, literally. But our regular, Ms. Anderson, was pretty put out that I'd ruined the legacy of some guy named Dale by knocking through his old shop. I don't know. I don't think we've met Dale, but I kind of already don't like him. So time will tell if we will meet him, but she's really like just made me hate him a little bit by association in advance. The space inside was slightly overwhelming. Having such tiny box to work with, this is going to need some real planning. I did place some new flooring from that antique shop I swore I'd never shop in, and then I got to work. This is the part of the game that I love. Any kind of game like this, any kind of like planning, like whatever kind of strategy, starts to feel a little bit like a tycoon game. And I love that. The rearranging, the putting things in order. But when you get a new space or you get some kind of upgrade, I tend to want to like delete everything and start again. And that's not great for time management. So not only did I pass out while trying to reorganize the store, but I also didn't have the stock out and ready by the time the customers were arriving at 9 the next day. I was also so flustered that my service was the lowest it had ever been. So given that there was already a general disdain for the expansion, it really wasn't the vibe that we needed it on the first big shop day for me to be giving the worst service that they'd ever experienced from me. I spent the evening getting it all shipshape to avoid a repeat of the next day. And the next morning, Teller gave me a rundown, which I didn't need, on the town consensus. Not great. Not all bad news, because Ted had some new shop fittings, and you know how we love Ted's shop fittings for the big shop. So I headed over there to pick up some new shelves, some coolers. They had like an appeal rating, so presumably this gets a bit more attention than regular ones. One issue with the big shop and how big it is how far away the back room is now. I already had a bit of a problem with like how far the PC and the bucket and sponge were, but now it feels even further away. So, I mean, you don't want to have to take too much of the challenge away. You don't want to make it completely frictionless, but I am kind of hoping that at some point there will be some kind of reward that you can exchange points for to move those things around, or maybe make something easier in that regard. Speaking of reward points, I had a lot to use and a new bundle of rewards to buy. Struggling to keep up with the customers this week though, so I decided to save up for a scanner. Although I really enjoy the mechanic of checking out, it doesn't really allow me time to like check restocks and clean between customers, so hopefully that'll be a decent upgrade for that. But ideally, I'd like somebody else. Like if I could manually do the checkout, because I really do like that, and have somebody else working in the shop doing the other things, then that would work just as well for me. But I thought it might be interesting, both for me and for you, since I'm filming for this, I thought it might be interesting for us to check out what the scanner was all about. On the way home, I did notice that Elmer was having an issue with a stork. Random. Taking up residence in his chimney, which is a problem for him because he relies on his fireplace for heat. But he can't do anything about it because they are a protected species, so he couldn't move the nest. Of course, without really saying anything, this now feels like it's going to become my problem. So something to look forward to there. The next morning, we were in the paper for all the wrong reasons. Remember I said I had that weird vibe about Cornelius? That whole feeling, I don't know, I felt like, I mean, I didn't think it was going to be a bad review, but I definitely felt like there was something a bit untoward. I think maybe I thought he was going to do something, like he was going to ask for a favor or something was going to be a bit not quite right, but I wasn't expecting this. I thought we were pals. Apparently we're destroying the cultural heritage of the town. I wanted nothing to do with him, honestly, at that point, but Teller told me I need to go and find out what's going on by talking to him. Annoying. Anyway, that wraps up Chapter 1. I'm really excited about Chapter 2. I don't know if you can tell. I'm maybe over-caffeinated at this point, but I have been awake for about 24 hours because I stayed up all night playing this game, and it was 100% worth it. I am so enjoying this game so far. It is perfectly polished. There are a couple of little tiny niggles here and there, but it is already well worth the price tag. I'm about 8 hours in, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of the story, but the shop part of this feels really, really replayable. I think this could give Stardew a run for its money. Maybe not, like in its entirety, but all the Stardew players who are looking for something new, this could be that thing. It feels very different and yet so familiar. It's definitely my game of the year so far. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you did, throw me a like, maybe subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.